Yeah, I do have a number of combined eventers in with us, Peter. They just do their speed and the conditioning work with me. They go off to other coaches for their other work. They're mostly under 17s, going up to next year, up to next season, they'll be up to under 20s. And I tend to mix with them between the short. They tend to do one session with the shorter sprinters and one session with the longer sprinters, and it just depends which session's which. And it tends to be, obviously speed for combined eventers is the most important thing I can give them as a speed coach, and stability and everything else. But for some of the longer runs, that gives them that base fitness that they require. That, as John talked massively earlier about the aerobic fitness. For a combined eventer, that they have to do a hell of a lot over a very short space of time and need to be tremendously aerobically fit. So it depends on the session, and that we will pick which session applies to them out of the two. And they'll come in and join in with that one. Do you want to answer this one? What sessions do you do to rehearse the competition day race distribution?
Basically, a similar type of session to the split fives. We might do split fours, or even split 350s, where we run the 300 at what you would have expected to be about 90-95% of race pace, wait 2 minutes, and then run the remainder, whether it's 100 meters or 60 meters, as quickly as possible, maintaining as much stride rate. So they were working on stride rate for that last 100 meters. Or, for instance, we might do 1 350 and 1 250 at race pace, and have 20 minutes or 30 minutes recovery between the two runs. It's just getting them into that zone of thinking about, this is the pace that I must be at for the race.
How do you include all of this in your training program? It's very subjective. You've already seen there's differences between myself and John about how we do things, what we do. It very much depends on your own coaching philosophy. I think you need to decide as a coach where you're going to pitch yourself, and you have to believe in that. And I think by doing that, your athletes start to believe, and even if things aren't 100% perfect, if they believe, they're always going to perform better than if they've got doubts. So I really believe in the athletes buying into what we're doing, how we do it. We discuss a lot about what we especially when we change things, we discuss it. I sit down and discuss it quite a lot with the athletes about what we're doing, what it's for, why we're changing, how we're adapting, things like that. So, I really believe in taking the athletes on the journey with you. It depends on the athlete's age, background. We've touched on that, and mine and John's view about how long they've been training, how you introduce speed, how long you keep speed up to, introduce elements into the program gradually. I've personally found wholesale changes, we take a step back. It takes athletes a long time to adapt to that. So I tend to introduce change gradually over time, even if I want to go somewhere. I will tend to not rush that change and think, well, we'll take 2 years over that change and introduce it gradually, rather than go throw everything out and say, right, it's a whole new world, let's go with this. And I found that produces better athletes and more benefits. If you're going to do an indoor program, John touched on that earlier. Do you look at double periodization? How long did you say your taper was, John, when you were coming up to big major competition?
Well, it could be about 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks is what I work on as well. So, yeah, so that's 6 weeks, increase intensity, decrease the amounts,
Yeah.
and really start to prepare the athletes. If you've got a junior athlete that's learning the event, do you want 2 6-week tapers to try and get them to peak at the indoors? Probably not. You might want to keep them, keep an element of hard work and just do the indoors for a learning, a learning element. If it's Lee who's already got a massive base of training underneath him, who perhaps wants, world indoors are coming up, or etc., then yes, you could probably consider that. So you've really got to consider what you want to get out of it and what your athlete's goals, what the peak is, what the aim is for those athletes. How do you plan the programs for the fours? As we both said, you've got to start with your goal and work backwards from that. Programs might change because things aren't perfect, the weather isn't perfect, things change as we've seen recently, but you need to know where you and your athletes are going to in order to get there. You need to know how many sessions the athlete can commit to. Can they do stuff by themselves if they can't get to you? If you're going to plan a program, it's pointless them saying, well, I can only come every Tuesday, because you might mix up what you're doing. An athlete needs to buy in. You need to sit down, agree with them. Okay, well, I can be here, I can be here, I can be here. And try and plan a program around them, with them perhaps then having to take some responsibility to do stuff themselves. We've already discussed the weekly cycles myself and John work on, how we work on those. There's a massive amount to get into your programs. You have to be clever about how you do that. Can you introduce stuff at the start of training? Can you drop stuff in at the end of training? So you've got some stability work in there. You've got some med ball work in there. When can you bring your plyometrics in? How can you do that? How can you fit everything in? You need to be clever. Like most of you, I've got a full-time job. I've got a family. I've got a group of athletes. I need to plan how, with them, my time and their time, how we're going to do things. And then from that, once you've decided all that, then you can start to say, okay, well, that element of that energy system I want to drop into there, that element I want into there, that element I want into there. This is what I think is important to the athletes. This is how I can fit it in, and this is how I can work it. And that's pretty much how I plan our training session, or plan the training programs, is looking at that. Have you any sort of difference on that, John?
Not really, no. Just harking back to tapering down, when I mentioned 6 to 8 weeks, that is 6 to 8 weeks from the major competition that they're aiming for. If it's the Northern Indoors or if it's the National Indoors, you work back from that particular and include the races before that as development races, not as ends in themselves, but to develop certain aspects of their race. I also try and, I also distribute a weekly training program to the athletes the week before that program takes place, so that they don't come to the track thinking about what are we going to do tonight. They come to the track knowing what they've got to do tonight. Now, I admit that can be a double-edged sword sometimes, because one or two of them might look at it and say, I don't fancy doing that session, so I'm not going tonight. But, that's the way I tend to do it.
And I never used to give mine the program, but as they've got older, it's a bit different at the moment, but I have started giving them the program for the next couple of weeks, so that, like John, they know what's coming, they're prepared for it. They've eaten accordingly and prepared themselves accordingly. So very much like John, I've set myself up exactly the same. And the younger athletes that come and do some stuff with the other coaches don't get it, but the older athletes all get the program ahead of time. Harking back, have a coaching philosophy, decide what type of coach you want to be, consider where your athlete's weaknesses and look to improve that. Consider where you're going to get the best gains for your athletes and make sure that's what you hit in your training programs. How much time can you and the athletes commit? It goes back, Glenn, I noticed, asked the question, do you need help? If so, find someone you can trust to work with them.
Yes, yeah.
Etc. I don't have a specific S&C coach who works with my group. If there's anyone in Liverpool, I would love one. A number of them travel a fair distance. They have their own S&C coaches that I'll have a look at their programs and suggest inputs into. The others, I'll go in once every couple of weeks, do some lifting with them, and they have their own program, which they do themselves, but I'll oversee just to check that they are doing that correctly, that they're doing the right stuff, they understand it, and they're still doing it properly. So I review it with them on a regular basis, is the way I do it with the others that don't have an S&C coach. Do you have anybody who works with you?
No, just the same, Graham, just the same. I don't have a specific, although if I'm talking to somebody, as I say, like Sean Pickering or somebody who knows, I have discussed it with Mike Corden, for instance, who was a multi-event coach in Sheffield, and we do have a throws coach who is very useful to liaise with and to discuss these aspects of strength and conditioning with. So it's always useful to have an outside input into your program.
So in summary, this is virtually the end. Understand the event and the energy systems used. You have to train those. You need to understand them. Quality of training is vitally important, and both myself and John keep a quality throughout the year. Sessions should follow a progressive pattern. John's already alluded to how he changes things from perhaps 600s to split fives to 300s to 300, 100 to 350. How he sort of moves things down throughout the winter through into the summer. Learning the event, especially for newer athletes, is vitally important. The right 200 pace is absolutely key for 400 meter running. Need to be able to run a fast 200 to run a decent 400. If they can't run a fast 2, do you move them out to 4s? I'd rather keep them at 2s and 1s and 2s and keep the speed up until I know they're ready to move. Athletes need to be progressively challenged. This was John's point. They will only know what they can do when they do it. Program planning is vital. Taking into account goal, age, time that they've been training, ability, what they're capable of taking, and you do need to sort of look at athletes and perhaps give some more runs than others, some more sessions than others, and just think what fits into your training group.